Welcome to Blue Talks.
All right, thank you so much for having me here at Stanford. It's great to be here and to share my story so that hopefully it can help you make sense of your story or maybe someone's story that you know that's struggling. So I had a fabulous childhood. I grew up in a small North Dakota community like they all pretty much are. And I lived on 10 acres out in the country. And we had accessible to us horses, dogs, cats. A couple times we had sheep, aptly named Salt and Pepper, and a goat named Pearl. And it was an amazing childhood. I got to go out and play outside constantly, just be a kid. And then when I also had the experience of being able to travel abroad, we had family that lived in Singapore, so we got to go visit them. We went to Japan, Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia. It was a fabulous experience. But even with all of those things at my fingertips, I struggled with fatigue. I struggled with feeling kind of sick, and I had headaches. So often family would mention to me down the road, they would say, you know, I remember when you were a kid, you would just disappear from the family celebration and be taking a nap because you felt sick or you complained you had a headache. I didn't know, and I was too young to drink before I was thirsty. So then I get into high school. And I'm a normal teenager. I'm doing all the things you do when you're in high school. I was in sports, I was in music, I was in business groups. I did all the social activities you do when you're a high school student. But I felt tired a lot of the time. I felt way more tired than it appeared my friends and my classmates seemed to be. I also struggled with being sick, but it wasn't the kind of sick where you thought you should go to the doctor. I didn't just run to the doctor for all the things. I also struggled with headaches. I didn't know that I could drink before I was thirsty. So then I get into college, and college brings on your own kind of stress. It has its own kind of life of its own. Now you're 18 years old and you're supposed to figure out what you're doing in life for the rest of your life. So I was very stressed out about that because I could have done so many things. I was so interested in a ton of different things. I could have gone many different ways. I could have been an accountant. I could have been an astronaut. I could have been a doctor. I could have been an underwater basket weaver, whatever that is. But what I chose was anatomy, physiology, and biology. So I wanted to teach it, so I got my education degree as well. So during this time, I struggled with extreme headaches, a lot of depression, and fatigue that didn't make sense for the age that I was. But I would go get help, try to go to the doctor, and they would just tell me that, you know, you're getting older. This is just because you're stressed out. There's really nothing to do here. I was probably 22 years old. But in addition to that, it made sense that I'd be depressed and tired because my dad was sick. He was dealing with his own health issues and he was actually dying. So it was a very stressful time for my family, for myself, and obviously for my dad. So again, it made sense that I was stressed and tired and probably had some headaches from all that stress. But I tried to drink before I was thirsty again. So I jump into adulthood, and now I'm teaching. So I taught 7th through 12th grade science for one of my jobs, and then I moved, and then I was teaching anatomy, physiology, and biology. Again, I struggled with being sick. I took home every bug that came with the students to school, and I brought that home with me. I struggled with depression. I struggled with just amazing fatigue, not in a good way. It just had such horrible fatigue that I could barely function. And I was really depressed. I'd go to the doctor, and again, they told me I was just getting older. My labs were normal, so there's really nothing to see here. But the last doctor I went to, in summer of 2007, I got really sick. I had chronic fatigue that was like no other. It was getting way worse. I had body aches. I had chills. It was almost like I had the flu for the whole entire summer. I stayed home with my daughters. They were 6 and 3 at the time for the summer because I had my summers off as a teacher. And I had to hire the neighbor girl to come over and babysit because I was so tired. I couldn't even take care of them. So when I went to the doctor that fall, she said, everything looks normal, but, to explain my fatigue and why I was the way I was feeling and how I was so depressed, she said, all your labs are normal. It's good. You're probably just getting older. You're in grad school. You have 2 small children. Your husband travels a lot. You're busy. Everybody is stressed. But then she felt my neck, and she felt a lump on my thyroid. And the nodule was pretty significant in size. And so she said, don't worry about this. 98% of these nodules are benign. But because of the size, I'd like you to go and have an ultrasound and just get a baseline to see what this thing is doing. So I left that appointment with my referral to the ultrasound in hand and a deep knowing that this was cancer. So I went to that ultrasound. The test came back negative. It was normal. There was nothing to see. Everything was good. Didn't match my symptoms. So there was one more thing that didn't explain why I was feeling how I was feeling. She said, it's normal, but I just think to be safe, we should probably have you go to an endocrinologist so that he can just take a deeper look at your labs, see what's going on. But the problem with him is it's going to take about 8 weeks to get into him. So I drank before I was thirsty, and I said, nope, I'm not waiting 2 months to sit and figure out what I am supposed to do to actually help myself to feel better and to figure out what is going on. Because they didn't know what I knew. I knew that this was cancer. So luckily enough, I had a connection through my brother-in-law who knew someone who could get me into the head of endocrinology at a world-renowned facility in my area. So I had that appointment a week later. I brought my labs, I brought my imaging, and he said, what? We do all of our own tests. We do all of our own blood work. We do our own ultrasounds. So I spent the day doing all of that, got all my labs, got my ultrasound done, and the next day he said, you have metastatic papillary thyroid carcinoma. It had spread to the lymph nodes. But he said, it's okay. This is an easy cancer. It's probably been in your system for about 10 years now. And so with that, I was terrified with the cancer diagnosis. But on the other hand, in kind of some sort of sick and twisted way, I was actually relieved that there was an answer to why I was feeling the way I was feeling for all of these years and never got answers. So I asked him, what are my options? What do I do with this? And he said, you have to have surgery. They're going to remove the total thyroid. You're going to have your lymph nodes removed, and then medication management, and then radioactive iodine. And that was all supposed to happen within 4 months or something like that. So I signed up for my scheduled surgery 2 weeks out. I went back to school to teach anatomy and physiology. And ironically, I was teaching an endocrinology unit. And the first sentence in the paragraph about the thyroid was that the thyroid gland affects every cell in the body. And I thought, whoa, the thyroid gland affects every cell in the body, and they're taking mine out. So what next? So I went through the series of testing, the surgery, the radioactive iodine, the other scanning I had to do. And I went back to my doctor every 4 to 6 months for 3 years at this world-renowned facility. Every time I would go, I would say, when am I going to get better? When am I going to feel better? I actually feel worse than I did pre-cancer diagnosis. And he just said, you're getting older. It's going to take time. Your labs are normal. We're doing what we're supposed to do for this cancer. And I said, what about new medication? What about a combination of medications? Or what about my nutrition? I had known quite a bit about nutrition all my life, been interested in it, but I hadn't really dug into that during that time, and I figured there's room for improvement. And he sat back in his chair and he said, there are no medications that can help you. This is how we treat thyroid cancer, and food doesn't affect how you feel. So I walked out of that appointment, again with a deep knowing that I would never be back there, which was drinking before I was thirsty, because this was a world-renowned facility. People from all over the world come there to get help with their health, but they weren't supporting me, not the way that I needed to be supported. So what I have found from this experience is that I needed to find a new way, and I needed to do it myself. I learned that our system is based on a reactive approach, not a proactive approach, and that's what I was looking for. And I knew that nutrition and biochemistry go together. I knew that. Doctors know this, but no one was going to support me in this. So I had to do it myself. I found a healthcare provider, an endocrinologist in my area that would try the new medication with me. And it wasn't even new medication, it was an additional medication. And he said, within 2 weeks, if this is working for you, you're going to feel a difference. You'll feel better. You'll know if it's something you should stay on, because there were side effects that he was concerned about. So I started taking it, and within a few days, I started to feel better. The light at the end of the tunnel was shown, and it was opening the door for me, and I just stepped right through it. So I dug deep into my nutrition. I drank before I was thirsty. I quit my job teaching that I really loved, and I went back to school to get my master's in nutrition so I could be a board certified and licensed nutritionist to do what I do now. And that is starting the business, The Rock Bottom Wellness, wanting to help people with similar, same but different stories as me, get over their health issues by looking at their nutritional deficiencies so they can feel and function their best. I also branched out a little bit recently, and I started the Holistic Practice Academy. So I take other holistic practitioners with me, and we work to help them help their clients drink before they're thirsty. I also published a book, The Rock Bottom Thyroid Treatment, in July of 2020. So not the best time for the live launching type of thing. But this whole program that I have highlighted in this book is based on me working through my struggles, digging deep into my nutrition, and helping develop this program that I didn't even know was going to be a thing. I didn't know I was going to start a business when I was doing this. So that program that's outlined in this book is at the core of all of my programs today, and it's what I teach my other holistic practitioners to use with their clients. So I tell you my story again because everybody has a similar story. They may not have the same exact situation, but either yourself might be struggling with something or someone you know might be struggling with something, and I want to teach you 3 ways to drink before you're thirsty. The first one is to nourish yourself with healthy and whole foods. So nutrition is simple. It's just not always easy because there's so many things out in the interwebs that tell us what's the best thing to do for this, and this food is good and that food is bad. But the problem is that we get away from the basics and we don't drink before we're thirsty. We go for the quick fixes, the magic pills, the potions, the packages, protein shakes, whatever. And it doesn't really help us move forward. It's just a quick fix. It's not getting back to your basics with your food and nutrition. Second thing, self-care and replenishment. You need to look at yourself and think about the things in the last time that you have taken care of yourself. I asked a client this the other day. She did not know how to answer my question. I said, what do you do for self-care? She did not know. She had no clue what I was talking about. She had to think about it. And she's like, well, I read. Does that count? I'm like, yes, we can start with that. For sure, that's good. If that's something you love and that's what you enjoy, then you should be reading. That's part of self-care. But we live in a society that highly regards people who burn the candle at both ends, people who sleep very little hours and work a ton of hours. But you need to quit giving to everything else all day long, and you need to give something back to yourself. So what are those things you loved and enjoyed when you were a kid, but you quit doing because you grew up? Or what are the things that you wish you had time for? Start with 5 to 10 minutes every day as a non-negotiable that you will do to give back to yourself. That's the second thing. The third thing is to find a healthcare professional who will support you. It can be kind of difficult sometimes. I was lucky to find the person that I needed to just give me that medication to give me a chance to feel better. So you can find that person. I know one who does this. And you need to find someone who gets it and who's been there and knows what you're going through and is willing to walk hand in hand with you. So the last thing I want to say is that I talk to people every day that are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and yet they don't take action. They put everybody else first. They put everything about themselves on the back burner, and then they think there's a perfect time to get healthy. They think that they will start when their birthday's over, when their husband's birthday's over, when they pay for their kids' stuff to go to prom. That's the last thing I just heard. They just wait, or they think that they can't do something healthy for themselves if there's some event coming up. So what I would say to you is take this quote by Sean Patrick Flannery, and this is what a client just said to me that she does now every day. Do something today that your future self will thank you for, and that's to drink before you're thirsty. So if you feel called, I would love to support you. You can access me on these social media channels. And to help you get back to basics with your eating, you can download that meal guide that's just very simple, back to basics. You can do it even if there's a birthday, even if there's a holiday or travel or vacation or whatever. I just would encourage you to check that out. Thank you so much.